Heading into Week 1's matchup against the Atlanta Falcons at Soldier Field, I was very confident that the Chicago Bears would come out in the opening game of the season at home, going up against the defending NFC champions, and be very hot, play with a lot of emotion, and really stick a game to the Falcons. Now, I wasn't crazy enough to pick them to beat the Falcons. I didn't do that. But I was very confident in their ability to cover the spread, which was 7, because I looked at a team that is maybe a little bit better than is given credit for on the defensive side of the ball, a team that should be able to run the ball, an Atlanta team with still some questions on the defensive side of the ball, and overall as a team, how are they going to come out as the defending NFC champions, losing the Super Bowl in the fashion in which they did, dropping that 28-3 lead like it was a choke job that even Peyton could be proud of, but more so knowing, you get past all that other BS, is that when you're the defending NFC champions, everybody's going to try and give you their best shot. Everybody's going to be up for that game. Everybody's going to be ready. And I thought the Bears matched up pretty well against this team, especially early on in the season. And that's ultimately what we saw. In my opinion, we saw a Chicago Bears team for extended stretches of last Sunday's game. They were the hungrier team. They were the better prepared team. Especially defensively, they were the better coached team. And felt like at times on that particular day that they were the better team. That's what it felt like. It felt like for large stretches of that game, the Bears were the superior team to the Atlanta Falcons. But unfortunately, close only counts in horseshoes, hand grenades, atom bombs, and probably some other things. You could be that for a while, but ultimately, talent does matter. Experience does matter, and the Atlanta Falcons just ultimately had too much of those things, and they ended up holding off the Chicago Bears down to the very last second, mind you, and winning in Soldier Field 23-17. So Atlanta starts off the season 1-0, and it was a very important victory for them because they needed to get off to a good start. And while from a style of play standpoint, from a what they did defensively and frankly at times offensively standpoint, they didn't do a very good job. The Falcons have a lot of work to do. They needed this win really, really badly. And ultimately, that's what matters the most in the National Football League. They got the W. And the Bears, for all their competitiveness, for all their fight and their try and want to, when it came down to nut cutting time, they just didn't get the job done. So the Chicago Bears put up a valiant effort, but ultimately came up short. So let's take a look at the game. I'm going to talk about the good, the bad, and the ugly. We'll start off with the good. From the Chicago Bears standpoint, they took the defending NFC champions to the limit. They were competitive throughout. This game was close throughout. Even when the Bears got down by 10 points in the fourth quarter, they kept coming. They kept fighting. This was the true definition of you have to play 60 minutes of football, because the Chicago Bears almost got an upset victory over a team in theory and on paper they had absolutely no business being in the ballpark of, let alone having a chance on 4th down and goal late in the fourth quarter to win the damn game. I look at this team defensively and I see that they allowed only 13 points in 3 quarters. And in general, even after that, you're down only 3. And even with the Falcons scoring 10 points in the fourth quarter, you're still talking about a team that only put up 23 points. If I told you before the game that the Atlanta Falcons would put up 23 points, you would feel really good about the Bears' chances to be in the game late and potentially have a chance to win. So the defense definitely did its job. You look at Devontae Freeman and Tevin Coleman, they only combined for 53 yards on the ground. The Bears did a great job of containing Julio Jones. He only had 4 catches for 66 yards. When you can take that great 1-2 combination in the Atlanta backfield and really contain them, and you could take Julio Jones, one of the very best wide receivers in the league, and you could contain him, you feel really good about your chances. And then offensively, you had that breakout performance from 4th-round rookie from North Carolina A&T, Tariq Cohen, 113 combined yards, 1 touchdown, but just the explosiveness that he brought. Like, you watched him and you're like, oh my God, this dude's a beast. This dude's a difference maker. And it's a good omen for the rest of the season for the Bears. And it's really exciting to think about that thunder and lightning combination out of the backfield between Jordan Howard and Tariq Cohen. And then we get to the bad. The Bears were only down 3 going into the fourth quarter. And then one defensive lapse was all it took, and it's Austin Hooper, 88 yards to the house. And to the Bears' credit, that wasn't the end of the game. They didn't throw in the towel. They didn't cave. If anything, it kind of kicked them to life a little bit. And I felt as a team, especially offensively, they took it up to a different notch. But when you want to be a good team, and in particular you want to beat good teams, it is one thing to give up an 88-yard touchdown reception to Julio Jones. It is another thing to give up an 88-yard touchdown catch to Austin Hooper, who's about 4th or 5th in the pecking order of the Atlanta Falcons passing game. You look at the Bears offensively, they allowed 4 sacks. Some of that is on Mike Glennon for holding the ball too long. Quite a bit of that is on the wide receivers and their inability to separate. But some of that's on the offensive line too. Even though you have those young athletic rushers for the Falcons, the Bears needed to do a better job of protecting Glennon than they did in this game. You look at the receivers, which is going to be a theme all year, because there's not much to look at. All the receivers combined for Chicago had 9 receptions for 82 yards. Just think about that. Austin Hooper, with 2 catches, outgained all of Chicago's wide receivers combined. And the worst thing, the biggest bad for me out of this game, was the Bears' play calling in the first 3 quarters. I thought it was absolutely atrocious chicken shit football. Look, I understand you don't have a lot outside. Look, I understand that Mike Glennon hasn't started an NFL game in a couple of years. But you cannot play it so close to the vest where you clearly look like you lack confidence that your team can actually make a big play offensively to win the game. And if you've gotten to a point where you feel like you have to hide your quarterback as much as they did with Glennon in the first 3 quarters, then why the hell isn't Mitchell Trubisky your starting quarterback right now? Because as much as they handed off the ball, and even when they did throw, everything was a dink and a dunk to a running back or a tight end, Trubisky could have done that. And in fact, Trubisky could have done some things like avoid some of the pressure that the Atlanta Falcons got on Glennon with Trubisky's ability to move his feet that Glennon just doesn't have. That play calling the first 3 quarters was terrible. You're not going to get anywhere playing that chicken shit play not to lose instead of play to win football. And it was crazy, too, because in the fourth quarter, once Austin Hooper went 88 yards for the touchdown, all of a sudden the Bears were like, oh, my God, we might actually have to try to throw the football down the field. And Glennon was all right in the fourth quarter, and he had his team in a position to win. But again, if you're going to play that scared for that much of the game, then why aren't you starting the rookie? And if you are going to start Mike Glennon, then you need to at least try to occasionally go down the field. It was absolutely ridiculous. Shame on the Bears and their play calling for the first 3 quarters, because it feels like that was a major hindrance to them winning a game that was eminently winnable. And then we get to the ugly. It would feel strange if I didn't say it. And yes, I was very huge on him coming out of West Virginia in that 2015 NFL draft. I was giddy as all hell when the Chicago Bears selected him 7th overall. But there comes a point in time where you just got to jump off the bandwagon. And I'm sorry. Kevin White breaks his freaking collarbone or whatever the hell it was, and now he's going to the IR again. So a guy that missed his entire rookie season with a shin injury, missed a good portion of his second season with another leg injury. Now we've freaking transmorphed up into his freaking shoulder and collarbone area. And of course, Kevin White would get hurt and be lost for the season. For a team that had already lost Cam Meredith to a knee injury in the preseason, their number 1 option, that had high hopes with letting Alshon Jeffrey go in free agency that Kevin White was going to come in and be able to be that number 1 guy or even a number 2 guy at this point. Hell, just get him on the football field and see what the hell he could even do. He made it just over a little bit of 1/2 of 1 game. And I'll be surprised if we ever see Kevin White in a Chicago Bears uniform. And a lot of you are going to sit there and say, well, what difference does it make? Because he's not healthy even when he puts on the uniform. Hell, at this point, he'd probably throw out a back muscle putting his jersey on. And you're absolutely right. It is one of these things that's painful for me to say because injuries are hard to predict. But ultimately, Kevin White has been a massive freaking bust. And I was so eminently wrong about him. And then what's even uglier than that, and how unfortunate that is late in the game, after Dowell Loggins decides, hey, we got to throw the ball a little bit, and you give Mike Glennon a chance, and he does okay. He gets the Bears into position late. You get deep into Atlanta's territory. You get into the red zone, and all of a sudden now, you have a chance legitimately at home, the opening game of the season, to beat the defending NFC champions, to have hoofs for hands Jordan Howard and brick hands Bellamy drop potential touchdown passes. Mike Glennon is already not a stud to begin with. So when you get the type of quality performance that you got out of him as a team in the fourth quarter, you must validate that performance. You must help him out. And ultimately, I don't care if the Bears receivers aren't great. I don't care if they're not household names. I don't care if they suck and it's one of the worst wide receiving cores in the league, because all of that is pretty much true. Ultimately, these assholes are still NFL players. You are drawing an NFL salary. This is Bush League bullshit that somebody like Josh Bellamy consistently can't catch the damn ball. He's the one guy, it seems like, in the receiving corps that can give a little bit of separation occasionally, but it doesn't matter, because the worst mistake you can make is ever to throw him the damn football. How hard can it be? And I say this because you ultimately have one job to do: catch the football. However you do it, it doesn't matter, but that's what you got to do. And for these guys late to put the ball on the ground when Glennon gets them in a position where they could potentially win the game is completely and totally inexcusable. This is an example of the team pissing the game down their leg late that, for all intents and purposes, they really should have won and deserved to win. In terms of stars from week one for the Bears, I look offensively, it's got to be fourth-round pick Tariq Cohen, 113 combined yards, 1 touchdown. I mean, he was a factor back. He was a difference maker. He brings an explosive element to that offense that the Chicago Bears are so badly lacking. And I get excited again about the potential of him and Jordan Howard as that thunder and lightning combo out of the backfield this year. But you get to a point where you have to wonder, based off his abilities as a pass catcher, as a route runner, and his explosiveness, even at all, 5'6", 190 pounds, if Tariq Cohen isn't going to have to play the vast majority of his time at wide receiver the rest of this 2017 season, because it's not like the Bears could just go on the waiver wire and get somebody, and it's not like the trade market's going to be aplenty with wide receivers that could come in and make a difference. You wonder how he's going to be deployed going forward, and if the Bears are going to get to a point of desperation where they get so excited about this kid's explosive upside and potential that they end up running him into the ground and getting him hurt because they overutilize him. But for 1 week, man, he was incredible. And defensively, Akeem Hicks, right before Sunday's game, he had signed that big contract extension, and he came out, and he was the best player on the field defensively for the Bears. Had a couple of sacks, got some more pressure on the backfield. He was an impact player. He was a difference maker, and he's been a very nice addition to this Bears defense over the past 2 seasons. Now, to bring it all home with the last-minute drive, I look at it ultimately this way. The Bears, there are things to point out and complain about, but it was still kind of a feel-good loss in a way, because they were really competitive against a quality opponent. I mean, they faced a team with a legit number 1 wide receiver. They faced a team with a legit franchise quarterback, the reigning league's most valuable player, and they stuck this type of game to them. It was just frustrating because it felt like this game was in the Bears' grasp, but John Fox and Dowell Loggins were too concerned with playing not to lose offensively in the first 3 quarters that, when it came time to turn it on, they were lucky that the switch did come on ultimately. And I'll say this for Mike Glennon, as much as this team tried to hide him early to their detriment, late when his team needed to, he had some clutch factor to him in the fourth quarter. He made some good decisions, he made some really nice throws, and ultimately, not only did he have his team in position to potentially win, they should have won if their damn receivers could catch a football. But that's the thing. It's going to be the Bears' lack of offensive skill talent at the receiver position that's going to be their offensive undoing in 2017. And expect more of what you saw here in week 1 all throughout the season. A defense that's good enough to win games, maybe be a wild card contender, with an offense that significantly holds them back, and a coaching staff that intentionally tries to hold them back. So close, but ultimately no cigar this week.